I guess I gotta do a fucking podcast. These things are easier with guests. Like, I used to do a podcast when I lived in New York. I'd always have somebody on. Like, I don't know how I'm supposed to just, like, I talk all the time, but most of it is useless nonsense. I don't know how I'm gonna fill an hour. There's gonna be a lot of bullshit, and you're just gonna fucking deal with it. But, I mean, I guess I'm funny, so it's worth something. I got fired from my job yesterday. It's bullshit. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. Like, it's weird that we live in a society where you'll literally die without money. Like, you will literally die if you don't make money. And the people who pay the money are allowed to just be like, yeah, I'm done. No more money for you. How is that fucking, like, like, you can't just take your kids out to the woods and be like, sorry, I can't feed you. I'm sorry. I don't want to do this anymore. You have to just figure it out yourself. Like, it seems to me that the people who set up and benefit from the monetary system have some responsibility to the people who they force into participating in it. I just hope, like, I hope a lot of these people end up getting fucking murdered. Like, that's really, like, when you look at, like, the period in the 20s and 30s when it's like, wow, how were people gaining so many rights so many quickly? They were fucking killing people. Like, if you look at that period of history, there were violent massacres and, like, fucking riots all over the country, like, every fucking week. It's just like people were like, oh yeah, you want to, like, pay me 7 cents an hour? Well, how about I burn your fucking house down and kill your kids? How's that sound? Hey, I would prefer $2 and then I won't kill you. So does that sound like a good deal? And, that's how people got things done. But now nobody wants to kill anybody. A bunch of fucking pussies. This goddamn fucking sensitivity era. I think violence is important. Like, there's no such thing as a society without violence. We've given the right to be violent to the government. And they abuse it. It's not like they're just, oh, we have this right and we won't use it. No, they fucking kill people all the time. And they're not even trying to hide it. They're just like, oh yeah, we're allowed to do that. What's the problem? I don't understand why you're upset. Like, oh, you're rioting in every city just because we murder millions of people every year? That seems like an overreaction. Like, there's no such thing as a fucking society without violence. It's just a matter of who gets to be violent and who doesn't. I think it's fairer if everyone gets to be violent than if only certain people who abuse their privileges all the fucking time get to be violent and don't help anybody. Like, when has the government ever done anything good for you, like, selflessly? Like, have you ever had to call the police? Like, have you ever been, like, robbed or something? I have. I've lived in the ghetto. Like, look, I have fucking water stain in my roof and this fucking shitty fake wooden walls. I obviously still live in the ghetto. I've lived in a shitty place my entire life, and I've been robbed. I've had to call the cops over that a couple of times. They don't do anything. They don't even, like, and they tell you. They're like, yeah, we're not going to investigate this. Why? We don't want to. Like, if I took, it's not even, you can't even call it stealing because everything at a store is insured, so they don't actually lose money. So it's not actually, to have something stolen from you, you have to lose something. If everything is insured for as much as, or even more than it's worth, and I take it and you just get money from an insurance company and you have no loss, then nobody stole anything from you. You broke fucking even. But you steal something, you take something without paying from it for a store that's like fucking $20. They'll find you. The cops will come and get you and they'll fucking arrest you. But if somebody steals like $2,000 worth of shit from your house that isn't fucking insured, that you can't get back, there's like, yeah, these things happen, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. You pay taxes for this. Like, you pay police to exist. You're their boss. You literally, if you are a citizen, you are the boss of the police where you live. According to the law, they work for you. Can you imagine any other fucking scenario where you could just tell your boss, like, yeah, I'm not gonna do what you paid me specifically to do because I don't feel like it? That would be a lot of work, and I don't like to work. Really, that's the cops are, yeah, I don't want to work. Like, I'll beat the shit out of somebody, or maybe, like, shoot somebody because I think it's fun. But if you want me to, like, use my head, or, like, exert physical energy, over something that doesn't benefit me personally, you get the fuck out of here, buddy. I'm not gonna do that. You think you are? I don't care if you're the one who pays me. At what point do we just cut these fucking people's heads off? And that's has upset like a lot of people who I know who fancy themselves anarchists. Most people don't know what that means. Like anybody I've ever met who's called themselves an anarchist, you talk to them long enough, like, oh no, you're actually authoritarian. You want a government where you're the dictator. You're not an anarchist. But a lot of people who fancy themselves anarchists will I forgot what I was fucking talking about. Yeah, I did. I forgot completely what I was talking about. Oh yeah, a lot of people like fancy themselves anarchists were like upset about that whole January the 6th thing. It's like, well, it's not a problem that happened. It's a problem that the wrong people did it. Like if a bunch of left-wing people storm the Capitol, or a bunch of anarchists, well, not a bunch of left-wing people because they're just as fucking evil as the right-wing people, but if a bunch of just fucking anarchists storm the Capitol and they're like, yeah, we don't want a government anymore, and anybody who tries to have one, we're just gonna shoot you. And then everybody gets to do what they want unless what they want is to control other people. Then we kill them. If there was something like that, I'd be behind that. But you just don't say, oh, don't do that. Well, so then fucking things can stay this way. Nothing is fair. And it's like, I get that life isn't fair, but life isn't fair applies to why do gazelles have to get eaten by lions, or like why does cancer have to happen. That's life isn't fair. But like the fucking bank takes your house that you can't afford because some shitty job fired you and you didn't ask them to and probably didn't even do anything wrong. That's not life isn't fair. That's people aren't fair. That's not just a random thing that happened to you through its own course of events. It's a group of people did that to you. It's not just, oh yeah, this is the way things are. Like, no, this isn't. It's like if I stabbed you to death and I was like, oh, well, people die. What are you gonna do? You see with the economy, like people are like, oh, well, the economy is shifting or the economy's on a downturn. Like there's it's not like a fucking living thing with sentience and autonomy that just moves to its own whims. It's a group of people making decisions about what they're going to do with money. And it's not like, that's the thing, like people say democracy. We don't live in there's no country on earth that has a rule by majority. There's never been a country that has a rule by majority. Democracy isn't fucking real. That's a goddamn propaganda term. You're like, oh, America seems pretty democratic. Yeah, you think that because they told you to think that. They think that in North Korea, too. They call North Korea a democracy. And they have elections, just like we do, just like we have elections. Like, oh, you get to vote for the president. Okay, well, fucking 3/4 of the country said they didn't want Trump to be president, but they liked him anyway. Liked him and made him president anyway. And they did the same thing with Bush and the same thing with Clinton. So it's really like 3 of the last 5 presidents lost and got to be the president anyway. You can't just pretend that voting's still real. You can't, like, if it was 1 or 2 of them, I'd be like, okay, maybe. But 3 out of 5, it's pretty clear that you're not influencing anything. Like, why pretend anymore? I don't like anything. It's just, you ever notice, like, you ever just been talking, like, complaining, and you realize, like, I can't think of anything that I'm just happy about that pleases me. I'm gonna fucking have a heart attack. I get headaches all the time, like a lot recently. I feel like, oh man, if I have an aneurysm or a stroke, that's probably it. It's gonna be. I'm just gonna be like complaining like this one day, and then I'm just gonna fucking die. That'd be great. You just get really worked up and passionate. Fucking go out like the fucking gas prices, and that's it. It's the last thing you say. Oh, that's great. Is it just stupid people who aren't angry all the time? Like, I meet a lot of people who just don't care about all this shit. And is it like, do you not know? Or do you not think about it? Or are you just like, oh, there's nothing I can do about it? Like, are you scared? Are you, like, worried that this isn't sustainable? That, like, the way the people in charge have decided to set up the world just doesn't work and no one's trying to fix it? Doesn't that make you concerned? It's ridiculous. It's America too. Like, this is the worst place ever. Like, we're like the richest country that's ever existed in the entire fucking history of the world, and we're the only country that doesn't have like free healthcare and trains and shit. And there's like, oh, it's not in the budget. Like, we have more money than anybody. Mexico has free healthcare in fucking subways in their major cities. Why could they afford it? If there's anything, as a rule, if Mexico can afford something, any other country can afford that thing. It's like that. Especially the US. Like, we're just so fucking rich. We just like use it all on the military. It's like that's like 64% of our budget just goes to killing people for no fucking reason. A lot of this is like nonsense with the like the way the contracts are set up. It's like, instead of like using taxpayer dollars to like, oh, we want to build this thing, so we'll just create the job. Like, hey, you know, we'll hire you to build this thing for us. Nah, we'll outsource a private company and give them taxpayers' dollars. And the private company is like, well, it's the richest government in world history, so obviously they're a fucking cash cow. I'm gonna charge them 3 times what this project is worth. And they don't fucking look, they just sign like, oh, it's $16 billion, fine, whatever. It's your money. It's not their, like, that's the important thing to consider. It's like, oh yeah, that seems fair to me, I'll pay for this, but it's your money. And if it were like, oh yeah, it's a democracy, did anybody ever ask you if you agreed with paying for this shit? That's a democracy. If the government came to you and they're like, hey, we're gonna spend $16 trillion on Bic pens for the White House, do you think that's a good idea? In a democracy, they'd ask you that fucking question. Hey, we want to set up a system where you could spend the rest of your life in prison for smoking a plant that makes you giggle. Nobody would ask for that to be a thing. That's how you know you don't live in a democracy. Oh, my God. I just hate people. So you ever hear about, like, people like I was so excited for the pandemic. I was like, man, everyone's going to die. It's going to be great, because I just can't stand anybody. I thought that this was going to be like the new plague. Imagine how amazing it would be if that, like, you know what? It's probably going to come back. Like, everyone's going to get laxed, and there's going to be all these strains that, like, I bet you, like, diseases are intelligent. It's just studying your body. I bet you in, like, 2 years, the fucking coronavirus is going to mutate into the thing that just, like, fucking 10 times worse than it was before. It's just gonna wipe out like half the planet. It's gonna be fucking phenomenal. Like, New York City, you're gonna be able to rent an apartment for like $400 again, like you could in the 60s. It's gonna be fucking outrageously amazing for like, it's just the same people too who complain about like, oh, we gotta do something to help the environment, are complaining like, well, we're concerned that people aren't fucking enough, like the population isn't at replacement level. Yeah, we don't need more people. We're fine. We have too many. We have so many fucking people that we have to create inhumane factory farms just to feed all of them. And we still don't feed all of them. I think we just have one whole fucking generation where it's like, we'll pick like 5 people we don't sterilize. Just 5 fucking people. They're like, all right, you 5, you can fuck all you want. Just fuck the shit out of each other. Everybody else, no more children for like 30 years. Let's clean this mess up. Get it down to like, every state in America just has 100 people, and every country in Europe has like 12 people. That would be perfect. No more fighting over anything. You have enough toilet paper in the next pandemic if everybody dies in this one. If there's only 12 people in all of France, no one's going to be fighting over toilet paper in the store. I hate everybody, man. You ever read Industrial Society and Its Future? That book by the Unabomber? It's like I started reading it as like it came up in my suggested shit in YouTube as an audiobook, so I didn't read it, I listened to it, but whatever, same thing. But yeah, it's just like, oh well, this is interesting. I'll see what this guy, had to say. And then like most of the way through it's like, he's making some great points here. I'm finding it really hard to argue with his logic. So I agree with the Unabomber. I think he did something great. You should read his book. It's actually like, he's a smart guy. He's actually one of the smartest people ever. He was like the youngest professor to ever teach at Harvard. And he graduated from Harvard when he was like fucking 16. He's autistic. I wonder if that's like the next step in evolution, because there's like a lot more autistic people, and you can make the argument like, well, they just didn't diagnose it before, like maybe, but I also think that like, yeah, people are changing and it's visible. In my lifetime I've seen a change in like people's overall mood, and it's a shift more towards the autistic. And I wonder if like, what if that's like, autistic people do seem to have a lot of logic advantage, where they just like, most people don't think clearly. They're not thinking about like, well, how does this work? They're thinking about, how does it make me feel? And that's stupid. It's not even like a debate. Like, that's just a stupid way to think about things. So maybe like autism is the next step in human evolution. Maybe in 100 years everybody will just be like fucking Rain Man. I hope so. It'd be a better world. Autistic people ain't fucking. They're too busy playing video games and doing science stuff. And blowing up universities and airports, obviously. Terrorism, eugenics. What else are we going to talk about? Would that be eugenics if we sterilized everybody? Like, I feel like it's only eugenics if it's like a certain group of people. I feel like when it's implemented across, I don't even know if we have a word for that. Like genocide wouldn't be, because you're not killing anybody. You're just preventing their from being future people. Let's do a poll on the Patreon. Let's make a word for sterilizing everybody. What would we call that? How the fuck do people fill an hour just talking about them? It's been 17 and a half minutes. I'm running out of shit to say. And everything I've said so far has just been nonsense. I don't even know if I agree. I don't even remember what I said. I don't even know if it was just talking. Yeah. What a weird time to be alive. It's like fucking... everything's just falling apart. Like, people are just getting crazier. And nothing makes sense. Everything is just surreal. It's like a dream world that we live in. And it's like, if you call it weird, you're like some sort of wacko conspiracy theorist. Like, oh, look at that, get a load of Alex Jones over here. Like, no, shit is weird. This is not the way we're supposed to live. And I think everybody knows it, and everybody's really uncomfortable and upset. And that's why everybody's always so fucking angry at each other. And they just have this misplaced aggression. It comes out in all these social special interest groups. It's like fucking... more reasons to hate each other than we do have reasons for anything else in the world. Like, I bet you could find more reasons to hate people than reasons that you want to fuck. And that's, like, fucking is your strongest biological drive. You are designed to want to fuck. You're not designed to hate. You're designed to want to fuck. You could find more reasons to hate than to fuck. And that's a shame, because fucking is amazing. I would highly recommend it. I don't know if you've ever tried it, but it feels fantastic. It's 10 out of 10. We're not going to make an hour. We're calling it short at 20 minutes.